A new report by ProPublica alleges Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has deeper financial ties with Republican donor Harlan Crow than previously known. According to the report, Crow paid for the private school tuition of Thomas's grandnephew, Mark Martin, who Thomas claimed was his son. The report claims that in 2009, Crow paid $6,200 monthly tuition for Martin's attendance at Hidden Lake Academy, citing a bank statement and an interview with a former administrator at the school. Crow's office has denied any wrongdoing, stating that the donations were made solely from personal funds and were meant to support at-risk youth through schooling. The report has been seized upon by Democrats pushing for greater oversight and a formal code of conduct for the Supreme Court. However, any legislative efforts to implement such a code will likely face opposition from Republicans who defended Thomas during a recent judiciary hearing. The justices have also resisted proposals for independent oversight and mandatory compliance with ethics rules, instead pledging voluntary adherence to a general code of conduct. All right, y'all. Clarence Thomas is the gift that keeps on not giving. Dr. Monago, I'm going to start with you because this is such a juxtaposition between how all of these resources were devoted to prosecute the now acquitted / mistrialed Mayor Gillum, and yet it's a big shoulder shrug. Obviously, Justice Thomas, doesn't have to adhere to any code of conducts, but it's such a huge difference in the way that these two black men are being treated, and it's looking kind of like Republican and Democrat to me. What's your take?
My take is that this redundant, systematic perspective and activity is boring. That's my perspective. They doing what they do.
Yeah.
Someone earlier said that people are supporting, I think the sister said that people are going against their own interests. Well, this billionaire was supporting his own interests by underscoring the power and the resources of Clarence Thomas. They're just doing what they do. I mean, what's next is how I look at it.
Yeah.
But I want to say, and I hope it doesn't sound off topic, is that I don't agree that people are voting against their own interests. I think people will have multiple interests. I think the women that voted for Donald Trump, even though he was grabbing body parts, which remain nameless, were supporting white power because that's their interest. I don't fully agree with Burke when she mentioned that CNN is just chasing dollars. I think that's true, but CNN is chasing dollars and also keeping white power in place and making decisions, including bringing on Barkley and these other people that they now have as their token black people, to perpetuate a certain white supremacist or a certain apologetic for white supremacist narrative. And it all goes back to different ways of keeping white folks in power, and that's what this billionaire was doing when they supported Clarence Thomas. This issue is going to go away, and we're going to be talking about something else because nothing's going to happen to Clarence Thomas.
Oh, well, we know that.
Unlike Gillum, he is steeped in whiteness, and his lifestyle is steeped in whiteness, and he affirms through his behavior and his legislative decisions or his Supreme Court decisions, white supportive legislation. Yeah. So his back is covered. Gillum's was not.
Right. Lauren, Dr. Monago called out his disagreement with your statement. Do you want to respond to that?
No, I mean, it's all about money all the time. All about money all the time. You know, you saw it the first time Trump showed up. I mean, there's really nothing to see here. It's obvious that what the media does has to do with dollars. That's why I was really surprised to see Fox let Tucker Carlson walk out the door, because he was bringing money. And so that was a surprising moment. It couldn't have been because of what they've cited, but the point is,
it's just an example that it's not just about money. That's an example that it's not just about money. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Lauren, that money is in there, but the narrative and the deduction of white people needing to be in power is there too. I mean, they don't have. I mean, you know, Roland used to be on the show, and why they got rid of Roland? Come on now, they want whiteness to be the blanket of consciousness for the United States of America too, at the Caucasian News Network, at CNN.
But I mean, to be fair, and I'll let Lauren jump back in because you guys are talking back and forth. If that is the case, Tucker Carlson was literally the poster boy for white nationalism and white supremacy at Fox News. So I do tend to agree with Lauren's position because ultimately, what Tucker Carlson ultimately ended up being is a liability because of the massive settlement that they had to pay out, and they were facing even more, they still are facing more cases against them. So, I mean, we could go
afford it. And there'll be another Tucker Carlson coming.
Absolutely.
One coming. They have a conveyor belt.
And that's the thing. Yeah, there's definitely a longer pipeline of white supremacists, white nationalists willing to get on TV and espouse that, as opposed to a Roland Martin Unfiltered that you get to have, or Roland Martin that you get to have on CNN. Okay, Lauren, back to you, and then I'm going to get Dr. Haynes in on this.
I mean, but to go back to what you were saying, Reese, about the whole Clarence Thomas situation, what you're seeing is a political party with no shame that'll do anything to win.
Right.
And the Democrats have not reached that point where they'll do everything and anything to win. They're still holding on to some of the old-fashioned politics, the old-fashioned rules, right? So, you have not only a political party in the Republican Party that'll do anything to win with absolutely no shame and no apologies, but they are actually, they're to a point really where they just don't. They have no rules. They have no internal rules or episodic rules. They just do what they want. And they have a media echo chamber that they organized really, to me, right after Barack Obama showed up. It was the Breitbart folks. It was, Tucker Carlson owning Daily Caller. They have that ecosystem, and that right-wing ecosystem pushes the narrative really hard, and they all push together. The Democrats don't do that. And frankly, the Democrats have a bigger umbrella of people that they have to please.
Right.
That's a tricky thing to take care of, right?
Yeah.
You've got the big umbrella, you've got to please all these constituencies. The Republicans don't have that problem. And so they're all pushing in the same direction. That is why Clarence Thomas can find himself in this laughable situation where, to Roy Wood's point on Saturday night, we have a person that owns a Supreme Court justice. So, this is just what this is. This billionaire owns Clarence Thomas, and nobody's going to do anything about it. The Democrats aren't going to push hard enough. They're not going to play by a set of rules that's really going to make something, quote, happen. And so when you do that up against people who are going to make something happen no matter what, you're going to lose. It's as simple as that. It comes down to who wants it more a lot of times in life. And that's what we're seeing in politics.
Well, to be fair, somebody owns Neil Gorsuch, too, because he's gotten a windfall. Brett Kavanaugh, all of them got something going on. It's just Clarence Thomas is the easiest target, and for good reason. Okay, Dr. Haynes, I'm going to rely on you to be the non-cynical one among us and tell us if you think that we shouldn't be shrugging this off. What's your take on this Clarence Thomas situation?
Got to hear this.
Well, I'll go back to my earlier statement about the doomsday clock. I'm not saying that to be histrionic, but really democracy is like teetering on the brink right now. And, one of the things that's interesting when you belong to a populist party, and pretty much right now, this version of republicanism is what we are looking at. The one thing that you do not need is a coalition. Mm-hmm. The only thing that you need are your followers or your fans, right? Your acolytes. That's the only thing that you need. And the way that the way that the judicial system was maneuvered over the past few years, we are in a situation where that populist group of people are the people who can decide the fate of a Clarence Thomas. Now, as an appointee myself, I got to say it's very disappointing to constantly read, which has been great journalism by ProPublica, by the way. Shout out to real journalists out there. Right. That all of these things are happening and it's just being brushed away by, it was just, we're friends, we're buddies. It's so cavalier when I think about other people, who aren't lifelong appointees like justices are. But when I think about other types of appointments, you're going to get in some trouble here for a fraction of the things, even the hint of impropriety is, damaging. So I think for the system, for people to believe in it, for people to buy into it, for you to think that, I'm going to act in a certain way because if I don't, there's a level of punishment. But if there's no accountability for anything, then what is that buy-in? What is that buy-in for democracy? What is that buy-in for, I want to do my duty and work for my country and all these different things. So this is a crisis in my personal opinion, because when you sign up for any sort of duty for your country, you're signing up because you believe in, some of the values that America says that it stands for. So right now, this is a true test. This is a true test about who we want to be. And democracy is absolutely wrapped up in this, because if Clarence Thomas gets away with this, I don't know where we stand. And I'll just say one last thing. Over the years when I've taught an American political science class, policy, law, and politics, I cannot tell you how many students over the years, even before all of this stuff with Clarence Thomas and taking away women's rights, would always ask, well, how is the court impartial when we already know their ideological leanings? Yeah. And that is not the way law is supposed to function, right? So that in and of itself has always been hanging over the court's head in terms of credibility. But where we are right now, the credibility of the court is literally in the ground. So what are we going to do about that? If we are out there talking about democracy, selling democracy, trying to convince other countries that this is the way to go, this situation right here is a test, and we need to pass it. And right now, I'm not too sure.
I think we're going to fail this epically. I think we lost the Supreme Court when Hillary Clinton did not win the Electoral College, because the bottom line is who's going to check them, boo. The Senate is completely out of the question to get the 60 votes. This is not on the table in terms of expanding the Supreme Court. So looks like we're stuck with a really messed up situation.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.